The Ricoh GR3, a pocketable street camera. But all right, for sunset tonight, I'm gonna do something a little different. Normally I'd be shooting with my Nikon Z7 and a 14-24 2.8 lens. But today I just brought the Ricoh GR3, which is a small point and shoot, generally used just as a walk around camera for taking street shots or family shots or just having something handy in the canoe or the kayak when I don't want to pull out the bigger camera. So we're gonna see tonight if it can landscape. All right, so the sun's gonna be setting over that way. I like this clump of grass, it's getting good light. I got a little bit of time, but I gotta set up my GR3 to make it work for landscape. Everything laid out here that I'm gonna use for this experiment. So I got the quick release plate on the GR. I have a shutter release cord. So this has to be a special powered shutter release cord because it's run through USB. Here's an adapter that goes on the front of the GR3 that allows me to use a filter holder, which will allow me to use a 3-stop reverse ND filter. So after all of that is assembled and put together, the GR looks like this. So we got the filter holder, the adapter, the camera, and the shutter release cord, along with the quick release plate. So I think we're ready to get it on the tripod and see what happens. We got a little bit of time for sunset to happen, so we'll just be hanging out for a while, waiting for it to go on. But there's beautiful clouds today and nice waves, so hopefully I'm not going to regret not bringing the Nikon. All right, we're getting close to sunset here. As you can see behind me, the sun is getting almost all the way down to the horizon. And let's see if we can grab it in the hands. Oh yeah, look at that, holding the sun in the hands. Seagulls, seagulls! Okay, so the sun's getting close to the horizon now, so I'm going to start getting a little serious on the camera here. And it's a little silly to have a point and shoot. It feels like instead of a big camera with a zoom that weighs 18 billion tons, but here we are. And we're going to give this a go. So the first thing I'm going to do is change a few of my settings. Normally when I'm walking around, I have touchscreen focus and using all the zones so that I usually focus on whatever is the most important thing that's close to me. And it does a good job when it's just as a point and shoot because it usually picks out people's faces and stuff. But for here, we want the focus point to maintain the same spot, and I don't necessarily want to accidentally touch the screen and move it. So I'm going to turn off the touchscreen focus, and I'm going to turn it into single point focus and move it to about the hyperfocal distance, which is a 28mm lens equivalent, so we're about 6 feet out, somewhere out there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this in aperture priority and then adjust the exposure compensation to account for the amount of light. And on this particular camera, I have the back dial set up for exposure compensation and the front dial for aperture. I'm going to shoot f11. So right off the bat with this thing, I am noticing it's a little bit difficult to place the filter. Usually you can see them pretty well on the LCD screen, but this one's just not translating the filter placement very well. I think I got it where it needs to be, but it took a little more work than it would have normally taken me to get where I want it. There we go, that's about perfect. So we're about a finger width of the sun going down. 1 finger width! So maybe 5 minutes. And what I'm going to wait for is when the sun hits the horizon and starts to disappear, we're going to hopefully get a starburst. It's going to cut back a little bit of the light. Hopefully we'll still have some light hitting this foreground. It's a bit windy today, so the grass is moving around like crazy. So I don't know if the grass is the right choice here. Might have to move quickly after we get the shot. But I like how the grass is illuminated right now, so I think it's a good go. All right, we're here for the magic moment. The sun's just starting to get down to the horizon. You just start to see that sun disk disappear. There's looks like a little cloud bank. So I'm just gonna concentrate on getting the shot and not talk to you too much. So one thing about this that is not real easy to deal with is it's a 28mm equivalent lens in full frame, even though this is an APS-C size crop sensor, relatively wide, but for landscape it doesn't feel extremely wide. Like even going to 24 would feel much, much wider than 28. So notice that if I want to emphasize the foreground and still have a good background, I have to keep that down lower than I normally might shoot this particular foreground. It's a very pretty shot if it turns out. All right, I'm a little worried I'm not going to get a shot here because the battery is getting low and the quick release plate actually blocks the battery door. So I'm going to try to squeeze off a few shots before I change the battery, just make sure I brought one. It sure is pretty right now. So you can see right here how that quick release plate blocks the battery door, so you have to take it completely off in order to change the battery, which is not ideal. Not what you want to go through with the landscape camera in the middle of a shoot. I really like the shot that I have set up. It's getting kind of cold, but the clouds are getting prettier and prettier, so this should be pretty decent shot, assuming the camera can perform. We won't know for sure until we get back in, but boy, it's looking good on the back of the camera. I know this camera does pretty well for night shots because I've done that. It has good dynamic range, and the street shots you can pull a lot of shadow details out. So also the sensor is very low noise, so everything points towards it should be a good landscape shot. Ooh, that one's going to be pretty. So this sunset's winding down. I'm going to get a few last shots, and then we'll see back in the office and get it on the computer and see what this looks like. I'm pretty excited to see what the GR3 can do for landscape. Okay, so we're back in the office now, and we're going to check out the shots that we got. But before we do this, I just want to show you a few of the shots that I would normally kind of take with this camera. So I have some pulled up on the screen here. Typically what I'm going to do with this camera is do kind of the street shots. I use it as just a pocketable camera that I carry around with me. Then let's look at the shots that we got from the video. We'll start with unedited shots, and then I'll go into my edits and stuff. So this is what it looked like out of the camera. You don't see it doesn't look like there's a lot of dynamic range. So in my Z7 unedited, definitely would see more detail in the foreground here. But I was trying to preserve the highlights in the sky, and you know, had the filter over the sky, darkening it down. Here's the first shot. Pretty respectable, I would say. We'll zoom in on the foreground and let it get loaded here. Not a lot of noise, so this was shot at ISO 100, and we were able to brighten that image up significantly. And fairly sharp throughout. Even down into the corners is nice and sharp. So if you look over here, you can see the corners looking good. So I would say that the camera does a good job. So here's the before, and there's the after. Here's another example. So the same situation where the before shot was really dark, and then the after shot, brightening it up, worked great. Nice and sharp. in the foreground here. Obviously not quite as sharp as my normal landscape lens, but still incredibly sharp. You can see a little bit of noise in there, especially in the darks where I had to brighten it up, but I didn't apply any noise reduction to this, so I would say that that's really good. The corners are sharp. Through here you'll notice it looks a little soft and maybe blurry, but my filter kept getting wet and it wasn't exactly the clearest. But there's our before. And here's another one. So this is the after and another one, and this is the before. So really brightening that up. I think I did a great job. I certainly wouldn't feel bad about shooting some landscape shots from here and printing them off and having them for sale. So definitely beat my expectations on the camera, particularly in this shot. So this was late. This was the last shot that I got with the camera. Here's the before. It was extremely dark by then. So I really had to lighten up this foreground quite a bit. And as you can see, it did great. So there's a lot of detail in there, even in the pitch blacks and what looks like the file. Nice and sharp. You can see some noise in there, but nothing significant, nothing that would really alarm me for using this. So that sensor in that Ricoh GR3 is just, it's unbelievable. So yeah, will it landscape? I would say yes, it will landscape. So if you just wanted to carry a pocket camera on vacation and you didn't mind the confinement of the 28mm lens, and you knew you were going to shoot some landscape, you didn't want to carry a lot with you, bringing that filter holder, the Stingray 3-stop reverse ND grad, and maybe a 2-stop soft ND grad as well, you'd probably be covered. Throw a polarizer in there, and that's kind of a landscape, minimalist landscape kit at 28. And it works great for walking around the town, taking vacation, street shots, anything like that. So I'm really psyched about this. I love this camera, and I'm glad that I can see that it can landscape. So before we cut out on this video, I just want to show you one last thing here. And this is, I went out another night and I actually brought my Nikon with my Z 14-24 2.8 with the adapter for a filter holder on there, and set up both cameras exactly the same and shot them at the exact same times, or as close to the same as I could, to see what we could get. And these are the results of that experiment. So I don't know, can you tell which one is the Nikon and which one is the Ricoh? They look pretty good. Both of them did a really good job. The Ricoh is surprisingly good when compared to the Nikon. Very impressive. I'm psyched about this test. The Ricoh GR3, will it landscape? And the answer is yes. So thanks for shooting with me today. If you enjoyed these videos, please hit the subscribe button down below, and we'll see you later.